There's something magnetic about a roguelike that respects your time and curiosity, not just by throwing random upgrades at you every 5 minutes, but by giving you tools that invite experimentation, where the build crafting feels like puzzle solving rather than luck-based chaos. Coreless gets that balance right. At first glance, it's a third-person action roguelike. Solo play, intense combat, permanent upgrades. You know the drill. But Coreless separates itself in how it handles progression, both within a run and between them. This isn't just about blasting enemies and praying for good RNG. It's about shaping your approach before you even step into the fight. You start by picking an avatar, not just a character skin, but a fully unique playstyle. Some focus on raw power, others lean into speed or utility, and some even bring minion-based mechanics into the mix. What's refreshing here is that these avatars are meant to be tweaked and redefined. You'll pour talent points into them over time, unlocking different strengths and perks as you go, and then layer on a whole system of powers and add-ons that change how your abilities actually function. It's this add-on system where Coreless takes a sharp left turn from the genre's usual formula. Add-ons aren't just upgrades, they're modular abilities that tie directly into your strategy. There are passive ones that give you boosts right from the start, and event-triggered ones that only activate under specific conditions. One might plague enemies every few seconds. Another could let you dash and suck up every buff in a radius. There's even one that gives you a second chance at life. But none of these are just handed to you. You earn them through ticks, an in-run performance-based currency that rewards how long you survive and how well you handle increasingly brutal encounters. It's a system that creates momentum. The longer you last, the better your chances of snagging high-impact add-ons. And since these add-ons can come with affixes, extra modifiers that alter how they behave, there's always a little spark of what if that keeps you invested. This is where the game gets really fun to dissect, not in a stat-crunching kind of way, but in how it makes you think about synergy. Maybe you find an add-on that triggers every time you activate Overdrive. So suddenly your entire strategy shifts to building up that bar and stacking cooldown reductions. Or maybe you lean into an early game passive that gives you bonus shields and decide to play ultra aggressive, knowing you've got a buffer. It's not just about finding strong items. It's about committing to an idea and seeing how far you can push it. And all of that plays out in environments that are alive with risk and reward. Every run is full of decisions. Take a risky fight for a shot at more ticks, or play it safe and bank what you've got. Do you invest in healing, damage scaling, or crowd control? You'll face off against varied enemies, mini-bosses, and eventually full-on boss fights that get triggered when your heat meter maxes out. It's basically a built-in timer for escalating tension. Survive too long without clearing fast enough, and you're guaranteed a showdown. But even if you wipe in the process, Coreless doesn't make you feel like you wasted your time. The meta progression is steady and satisfying. You'll earn permanent talent points, unlock new avatars and powers, and gather resources to keep customizing your loadout. It's a loop that actually respects failure, not just as a reset, but as a stepping stone. And that's a key part of what makes the experience feel good. You're not grinding, you're refining. What's also worth noting is that Coreless doesn't force you into rigid classes. You can blur the lines between archetypes and experiment freely. Want a melee tank that inflicts dots while summoning minions? Go for it. Prefer a glass cannon with high mobility and energy Reagan triggers? That's on the table too. It's not about best builds, it's about best for your playstyle. And because it's single player, there's no pressure to min-max for the sake of leaderboard climbing or co-op synergy. You get to approach each run with creativity, not obligation. Some roguelikes lean into frustration as a core mechanic, punishing you to make the wins feel earned. Coreless leans more into iteration. It wants you to build, adapt, and come back smarter each time. So if you're looking for a roguelike that rewards more than just reflexes, one that gives you systems worth sinking your teeth into, builds that evolve mid-run, and a satisfying sense of long-term progress even when you fail, Coreless might be exactly what you're after. It's still growing, still adding layers, but what's already here is a strong foundation that plays with genre expectations in all the right ways.
Ugh.